Let's start off with a card that has only recently started to see play within the meta, Barbarian Hut. It's the most valuable of the spawner buildings, giving you 10 barbs for 7 elixir. This is equivalent to 12.5 elixir worth of barbs, but of course they spawn on their own accord. Spawners naturally give you an elixir advantage from them because of the uncontrollable flow of one specific unit that it generates. This is opposed to something like Elixir Collector that could have also made this list, to be fair, which is a card that lets you spend your gained elixir on any card that is within your 8 card deck. However, I think Barb Hut is more of a broken concept for a couple of reasons. A big one is that value that we discussed earlier. Gaining 5.5 elixir is pretty insane. Elixir Collector only pumps you an extra 2, but that's obviously balanced out by the freedom that the collector grants you. The big selling point of Barbarian Hut is its immense HP. This building has almost 2,000 hit points, which is in between that of a Royal Giant and a Prince. For a building that already grants you 5.5 elixir, that's dumb as all hell. You can place this thing to defend multiple win conditions and have it still standing and producing barbarians. Elixir Collector won't do this, and that's why I believe that Collector is balanced in comparison to Hut. You physically cannot punish a Barbarian Hut unless your opponent places it in a position as to where you can play around it, but even then you have to deal with the minute of barbs consistently coming into your lane. In fact, we'll start off with a couple of weird ones. Rural recruits, why on earth would they be toxic? Well, let me tell you kiddos, the toxicity of rural recruits comes from the type of unit that they are, a defensive investment. This means that they're most effective when defending, and also cost a ton of elixir. That isn't a problem in itself, however, because we have a few cards that fit those conditions already in the game. P.E.K.K.A, Mega Knight, Giant Skeleton, they're all fine. Why? Because ultimately they're a single unit, meaning they cannot defend both lanes. If your opponent invests a P.E.K.K.A in the back, you understand that it's a dumb move because that P.E.K.K.A should always be getting defensive value. So you rush the other lane and get a ton of damage whilst they're still low on elixir. However, rural recruits cover both lanes, meaning that you can't really punish either lane, because you'd just be giving them defensive value. This essentially forces you to wait for your opponent to build their massive attack, and with this massive build up of units, it allows your opponent to gain spell value onto your towers, units, and all whilst pushing, just because they decided to invest their unpunishable recruits. Well, I don't think this one really needs an introduction. Elite Barbs. In these clips on screen, the pair of boosted barbarians are not too broken at all. They're actually pretty awful when fighting against cards of the same level. The only problem comes when they're not fighting even level cards, and this is extremely common, pun intended, when on ladder. This is because they are a common card themselves, meaning they're easy to obtain and request to upgrade to max. A level 13 Elite Barb against any other level 11 card gives them a 21% buff onto both health and attack. Imagine if tournament standard Elite Barbs gained a 21% buff to both health and attack. I think the game would physically implode. The only toxicity around this card is them being a common, which I think we all hope Supercell will fix eventually. This fact means that they're overrun on ladder and are probably the most hated card in the game. I don't even think I need to explain anymore, to be honest with you. Oh lord, where do I start on these? Zapsters are one of those cards that can get insane value or just none at all. This means that you'll probably need to spell them as soon as they enter the board in many cases. This leads to them being a great large spell bait card, which is a massive problem in the game right now. You might have to fireball them to stop your opponent getting an insane trade, but then might be met with a much worse card to deal with when you just don't have spells. So the solution is to just not spell them, right? Well, no. If you leave them, your opponent just gets a good trade and you're down on elixir anyway. There's hardly a way to actually get a good trade against Zapsters in a spellbait deck. What makes this worse? Well, the stun effect. It literally freezes units for 0.5 seconds and can almost be a perma-stun when timed correctly. Every 1.6 seconds, a 0.5 second stun will be issued by each Zapster. If timed perfectly, this can be a 1.5 second stun every 1.6 seconds. This makes most units only able to move or attack less than 7% of the time during this interaction. Zapsters have the potential to be an insane defensive unit that also cause a spellbait meta, all while stunning your units into almost being useless, and hence come in second for most toxic card. Our ultimate winner today is basically all effect spells, however I'll describe through freeze and heal right now. They give the user the ability to tilt matches in an unexpected fashion to their victim. Freeze is a bad concept because it removes defined counters by disabling attacks. P.E.K.K.A versus Hog? Nah, just freeze and the P.E.K.K.A is easy game. Well, at least until the freeze is over. This causes you to have to spend more elixir on that immediate threat, allowing your opponent free damage in the time that it takes you to react. However, heal is probably worse in my opinion. It entirely changes the concept of a true clutch to Clash Royale. Spells. People rely on spells to do damage and to finish up an interaction. However, heal says nope to this and just reverses damage done by spells, which upsets how the fundamental spell concept works. If spells were not in every deck, the healing concept would be fine. Sure, it'd give one set of healed troops an advantage against some normal troops, but would give the defender more time to react because the interaction will have to play out. It's just against spells that is toxic, and unfortunately that is a key part to the game. Alright, so there's my second attempt at becoming a top 5 channel with these videos. I just had this idea when writing the last top 5 episode and thought it'd be a cool video to make. I just want to give some honorable mentions to cards that didn't quite make the top 5, and that could have probably made this a top 10 overall, to be honest. Three Musketeers are a win condition that really require the attention of your spells, and synergizes very well with Elixir Collector, both of which can be included on this list for their inherent elixir leads and attacking potentials. Minion Horde should also be mentioned, as an extreme DPS card that has very few counters in the metagame. And finally, I couldn't leave without everyone's favourite, the Royal Giant. Unfortunately, struggles with the same issue as Elite Barbarians, but it would have been a bit boring if I just had 5 common cards in my list. But yeah, that's all I have for today. Let me know your worst 5 cards and try to think about it conceptually, not about which cards are really strong or over leveled right now. But yeah boys, thank you all for watching, and peace.